Hey, it's Patrick Bell at the Consulting Kingdom. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm here with my guest today, Daniel McCraine of McCraine Associates, Inc. Consulting. Daniel, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Thanks, Pat. I'm
Yeah,
excited to be here today.
tell our guests a little bit about you, where you live, what you do, what kind of consulting you do, and we'll start with that.
Okay, sure. So, again, my name is Daniel. As Pat said, I am located in Des Moines, Iowa, in the United States. If anyone's listening to this anywhere else around the world, may not be acquainted with the U.S. geography. So in my consulting, so let's see, I tell people I do business coaching consulting, business structuring,
Oh,
and
wow.
business exit planning is what I focus
Interesting. So,
on.
exit planning.
Yeah.
How much of your consulting practice is around exit planning?
I'm going to say 100%, Pat, because my belief is that when anybody sits down, any business owner sits down and does their business planning for their business, when they talk about growth, what are
Yeah,
they going to do with their business, they really should be considering what their exit plan is going to be as part of that business planning. Uh, and the reason for that is when it comes time to exit the business, and hopefully it's at the opportune time, hopefully that business
right.
is actually worth something. And that business won't be worth something unless they've done all of the work of growing the business in the first place. On the other side, if someone ever sat down and said, I want to figure out what my exit plan is, how am I going to exit my business? Well, they need to work backwards to say, what value do I want? How do I create a business that can actually be transferred to someone else? So, in my mind, business planning and exit planning are the same thing. Good business planning should include exit planning. Good exit
Nice.
planning should include business planning. So I can't work with a client to grow their business, increase profitability, work on scalability without also saying, why are we doing this? What's the plan long term? How are you going to get
Yeah,
out of
good.
this when
I
you
think it's
want
one
to?
of the first questions we asked
So,
ourselves is besides what business are we getting into, it was when and why are we getting out of the business? And so we started in
mhm.
with an exit plan to get out at a certain time with a certain result. Of course, we always dream up here, and I know that we can talk about that. What percent of businesses do you think achieve the goal in their exit plan?
Well, statistics and research shows that it's very small. It's very dismal. I think last I saw, and of course, don't quote me because I can't remember. I'm trying to go off the top of my head. I think it's like 64% of businesses
Okay,
have an exit plan. So the remainder don't even have an exit plan. Of those 64%, then, of course, you can imagine very few of them actually implement their exit plan. But when it comes time to, let's say somebody wants to sell their business, they approach a business broker, or they come to me and say, I want to sell my business. Um, only, what does bizbuysell.com is the largest
hmm,
online listing place to go. I think they say that 7 out of 10 businesses will actually sell. But the International Business Brokers Association says only about 1 in 10 businesses
wow,
are actually sellable. So, I mean, the need is huge. Somebody spends their entire life, their whole career building a business, thinking that this is going to be their retirement plan, that they're going to sell the business and have the money to retire comfortably, only to find out 1 in 10 businesses are actually sellable, and then maybe only 3 out of
wow.
10 will actually sell.
I have a friend in California um, who has been a painter, had his own painting company, ran it for probably 35 years. Very, very smart guy. And I said, "So what's your plan to sell?" And he goes, "Yeah, I've made enough money from it. I'll probably just give it to my employees." I'm like, "That's a that's it." enviable
It's very
position to
generous of
be
you.
in, after you've run a business for 35 or 40 years. It's like, I just give it to my employees. They can run it now. That's pretty good. And, we sold our business in Japan, and, I'd heard the stats about, so many people, what certain percentage get a fraction of what they'd hoped they would get, what they thought it was worth. And I thought, no, that won't be us. And in the end, it was us. So, but
Oh,
that's why this time, it's all about building the foundation, months of work, of foundational work,
mhm,
processes, policies, procedures, checklists, SOPs, how anyone can do. If someone, gets hit by a bus, as we say, someone else can take over the job. Um, that's it's a lot
right,
of work.
right.
It's a lot of foundational work, which is very nitty gritty detail. I'm not good at that. I'm the dreamer. I like to create that stuff, but you need people around who can just see all those pieces, right? Put them all together, do all the
Yes,
checklists.
yes,
Yeah, amazing. So,
yeah, yep.
so what advice would you give to someone they want to get into consulting? Um, you say, from your experience over the years as a consultant, what kind of advice would you wish someone had given you way back when, but that you didn't receive? We'll start with that question anyway.
Oh, wow. Wow. What advice would I have wished for? For me, I probably needed someone to explain to me it was going to take longer than I
But
thought.
would you have believed it though?
And
Yeah.
I don't know if I would. Yeah, yeah. So my journey has been pretty interesting. I started as a band director. I taught band
Okay.
in the school system. That was my first career. So then when I finally got around to trying to get into consulting, I had no understanding of what it took to actually be a consultant. I just knew that there were people out there who needed help, and I knew enough to be able to give them help. But I didn't understand sales. I didn't understand marketing myself. And I found out very early on that just because I told myself in my head that I was in business, that's not enough to bring in clients. So I probably needed someone to take me under their wing and say, look, you need to learn how to do sales
Right.
or you're not going to make it.
Yeah. There's so many elements to being successful in business, and it's really rare to find all those elements in one person. But the wake up call is, I think
Mm-hmm.
I can do sales, and as an example, and then you run up against someone who can do sales, or your competitor has someone who's much better at sales than you are, and then you lose the business going, why? I could have served them more. This really frustrated me years ago. I was, living in Kelowna, and I went out. I was doing sales for my own consulting business, and basically someone said, but can you do Facebook ads?" I'm like, "You think that's the only way to grow your business? They're looking for a 20-year-old kid to come in and do Facebook ads, not knowing that there's so much more."
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know how to combat that at the time. It took a journey to go so much more than what you're saying there. And I could bring you so much more value if I was on your team versus a 20-year-old. But how do you communicate
Right.
that? That's the sales. That's the
Right.
USP, right? Your unique selling proposition, your distinctive advantage. So tell me, so your business, um, I haven't prepped you for this
Mm-hmm.
or anything. Your USP, what would you say to a potential client that would cause them to think, man, I'd be an idiot not to work with Daniel McCraine?
Mm-hmm. So what I tell people is my unique selling proposition comes down to 4 words, and then I can expand on it, of course. But it's 4 words. It's profitability, scalability, legacy,
Wow.
guaranteed.
Guaranteed. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you?
Guaranteed. Yeah, yeah. So what that means is I literally tell my client, I am here to make you money. I am here to increase the value of your business, And I literally will do a baseline business valuation when we start working together, and then we'll do one later on. And I tell them, we're going to implement strategies that will increase your profitability. It will be double what you pay me in annualized profit. And when it comes to the business valuation, we will increase your business by X%. And with both of those,
Yeah.
or you don't pay for the next quarter, for the next toll gate, whatever that's going to be, whatever we set.
Okay.
So yeah, I literally
Um,
guarantee it that way.
Have you ever run into a situation where you've had to go into the next quarter and not taken a compensation?
You know, Pat, I had a client that I worked with for 2 years where I had to make good on my guarantee. And finally, we parted ways because I realized. So I realized two things. Once, as I was working with him, he was one of my very first clients. So one of the things I realized was I need to work with business owners who have employees, so the business owner can transform the business
Right.
while the employees are running the business. So this was a sole proprietor. So very slow progress trying to transform his business. And the other thing I finally realized was, for all his bluster about liking to talk about what a good salesperson he was, every time I kept trying to give him to do things to improve his sales, he would never follow through. And so finally I just said, I've been trying for 2 years. I am now repeating myself, and I don't see you taking action. So I think this
Wow.
is where the guarantee
And
ends.
so, do you have like specific
Yeah.
things like clauses in your guarantee? Like if a person doesn't show up and do the work, the guarantee is void. You have a bunch of those?
I, I do now.
Yeah.
I messed up with that guy. I didn't have those
Yeah.
clauses
I've
in
done there
there.
before as well. And yeah, I made a mistake a long time ago. I said, I'll help this business. And they really didn't have money to hire me. I said, well, just give me a percent of the increase. But they could just not implement. I'd say, okay, we need to update the website.
Right.
But, it's like 3 weeks later, oh, we can't get a hold of our website developer still. I'm like, guys, come on, so that was the end of that. But you can't implement if they don't have what
Yeah.
it takes to implement. Um, that's really tough.
No.
So,
No.
what kind of challenges do you find as you're consulting that are just really difficult to overcome? And you go, man, I wish I could solve this problem and I don't know how. You run into that ever?
Uh, I have occasionally run into some problems like that, Pat. I don't know that they are problems that I could generalize and say this is a problem I haven't figured out how to solve. It seems to be sort of one-off problems within the company as I'm working with them, and it either well, maybe I can generalize. It either stems around something to do with employment, or it's just the reluctance of the client to
Yeah.
actually overcome some things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so do you see consulting as a calling for you or um, something you just fell into? Talk about that.
Uh, so it does feel like it's something I sort of fell into, and I'll elaborate and I'll
Sure.
get to the second half of that in a moment. So I really felt like I was called to teach music or to somehow be involved in music with a religious affiliation. So initially, I thought I was going to be a church musician. And then I realized, okay, there are very few churches who can actually pay musicians. Okay, let's look at being a music teacher in a religious institution. So my teaching jobs
Okay.
were at private schools. And I really felt like I was teaching music as a vocation
Okay.
rather than as a career. So
Yeah.
it was for a purpose. I'm teaching you music so that you can glorify and worship either through performing
Yeah.
or at least participating. So that was an important part of that. Then I felt there was a point in my career when, so I left teaching, and I really felt like that had been
Okay.
yanked away from me. And I sort of felt like I was going through a couple of years there. I found myself working at a financial services company here in Des Moines for a couple of years, just questioning, why am I here? I thought that was my vocation. I thought that was my mission. Why did that get yanked away from me? What am I supposed to be doing? So I felt like I was sort of wandering during that period. At the same time, though, that was my first exposure to business, economics,
Yeah.
finance, all those things. Those things just don't come up
Right.
when you're learning to be a music
Doesn't
teacher.
matter.
It doesn't come up in class. No, not at all. That was also my revelation that small businesses are really what drive the economy in the US, and I'm sure the case is the same around the world. Um, I also then realized that baby boomers owned 2/3 of all the small businesses in the United States, and they
Wow.
were approaching retirement. And I got really concerned. Okay, so if that many baby boomers are responsible for our economy, what's going to happen when they choose to
Yeah.
exit their business? And it really started to bother me. And so then I thought, okay, well, by now I've been able to move from customer service and financial services into a training position. And I started working with some of the frontline leaders. And I was in a situation, I didn't actually teach leadership, but I would have these managers call me into their cube and sit down and say, I want to run
Yeah.
something past you. Can you help me with this? And they would ask me leadership questions
Yeah.
like I was their coach. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe this is what I can do. Maybe this is what God's calling me to do. I can go work with these businesses where there's a leadership transition taking place, the baby boomers exiting, the
Sure.
new owners coming in, and I can make sure that the business
Right.
survives that transition. So I got a couple of gigs and I got inside the business and I looked around and I found out, whoa, not only does this person not know how to lead people, they
Wow.
don't even know how to run a business. And I
Okay.
don't know anything about business. So that set me down the path. And so this is where I started to think, okay, maybe God is giving me a different mission here. And maybe the mission is to work with Christian business leaders to grow their business so they become
Right.
influencers in their community so they can stand up and take a stand for
Wow.
Judeo-Christian principles
That's a
in
great
their
mission,
community.
like you've just described it
So,
there. So, um, how then has faith impacted your journey through this? Talk about your faith there.
yeah, well, yeah. So part of that, like I said, I felt like I lost my mission. I felt like God benched me for a while, for a few years there, and just did not understand. But I just kept. There was, what was that song that came out? Do you remember? The movie came out, Fireproof, and there was that song that was in there. While I'm waiting, I will serve you. While I'm waiting, I'll keep taking every step by faith while I'm waiting. And I just kept reading. I had a life verse, I think, that really pulled me through life, and I've come back to it. Psalm 46:10, be still
Wow.
and know that I am God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not you.
Yeah.
I am God. Okay, yes, God. But I had to cling to another verse during that time, which was, work as though you are working for
Sure.
God, not for men. And now I've lost track of that. Is that Colossians? I think is where that's found. But I just had to keep saying, okay, God, this is not the work I want to do, but I'm just going to keep doing this as if I'm doing this work to glorify you,
Right.
not to please my boss. And in while doing that, I will
Right.
please my boss because I'm working for God. But then God just brought me through that and said, no, I'm going to give you a new vision here. I've prepared you not just to understand music, but I've prepared you to be an educator and to teach and guide and coach other people. And so I'm still in the education business.
Different audience.
That didn't change.
Yep.
Exactly. And a different
So yeah,
medium.
the song that really struck me
Right.
back in days when I was in a really tough season, and it was the song "Seasons" by Hillsong United or something like that.
Mm.
Anyway, great song. And someone at church would be singing the song, and my friends would turn around like, "That's you, Pat. Your season's coming. Your season's coming." And sure enough, it did. It just took about 2.5 years longer than I thought it should have. So which 2.5 years was my hard season. Let's call it the
Mm-hmm.
most recent hard
Mm.
season. So, but God brought me out of that. But it was 2.5 years of what the heck am I doing? Why am I going through this? And why can't I get a client? And like I've got all this knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and wisdom and all that, and no one wants to hire me. And I think it was just the Lord saying, just wait. No, 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 no. Just wait, just
Yeah.
wait, just
Yeah.
wait. And they have that image where they show someone going straight up, to like, here's where you begin the journey, the destination, the little flags there, and then it goes, oh, you come down like this, and then you go up. And I'm like, that's
Right.
not even true. It's more like you go up and then you go down, and then you go down further, and you enter this tunnel, and you don't know how long the tunnel's going to be, and you could stretch around the room because it's so long, and come all the way back around, and then suddenly like an escalator or elevator goes. Now we're there. Okay, so but when you're going through the tunnel, it's like where are the light switch? I can't see anything. I don't know anything. There's no voices. There's nothing. And it's a long time, a long journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What kind of
Yeah. Yep.
resources or support systems or something do you lean upon then that are really beneficial to you when you go through like harder things, or when you're trying to not not improve or increase its get to the next level, find the breakthroughs?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so for me, I guess thinking internally, managing myself, because when I did focus on leadership, I talk about 5 circles of influence, and leadership really starts with yourself. You have
Hmm.
to be able to lead yourself first before you can influence other people. So for me, the thing that I do that I rely on the most is personal time with God, and that includes I made a commitment many years ago that I was going to read through the Bible in a year. And I kind of geek out this way. I found statistics. I found how many chapters there
Right.
are in the entire Bible,
Yeah.
divided by 365, and then rounded up to 4. Okay, so if I read
Yeah.
4 chapters a day, I will complete the Bible in
Yeah.
a year. Just 4 chapters a day. That's all it takes. That's all you have to do. But that is so important to me, to making sure that
Yeah.
I maintain my attitude. Because if I have a bad day, if I've got a bad attitude, even if I go in and I treat it as a duty, okay, I got to do it, got to put the check in the box today, got to read my 4 chapters, it never fails that I end going, I am so glad I did that.
No. Yeah.
That made such a difference to me. And then beyond that, the other thing that has been so important to me, I don't think I would have made it as far in this career as I have. I have an accountability group that I meet with. So once a week, I get together with 2 ladies. It happens to be ladies, but we meet on Zoom every week. We're all in different parts of the country, but it's that accountability. What do you want to try to get done this week? And then what
Yeah.
did you get done last week? Why didn't it go the way you want to? What do you need help with?
Wow.
How can you course correct? So that is extremely beneficial to have some people there. They hold the
Yeah.
line. They're not mean about it. They definitely hold the line. But then they ask those hard questions about, Okay, well, how are you going to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and
Yeah.
get
So you
back on
got
track
good
this
people
week?
around you, right? Wow, that's
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Can you like share a really top strategy for yourself from your business, from your consulting, that would be really a beneficial, something beneficial to our listeners today? How do you get success in this industry? Like what if you had to give one thing? How do you
How do you get success
how do
in the
you become a
consulting
successful
industry?
consultant? Like you have to feed your family, you have to
How do you
get
become
clients.
right?
What's a
Right.
strategy to
Right.
become a successful consultant?
Strategy to become a successful consultant. So you have to follow your own advice, which is really hard to do. So being a business coach or a business consultant, you're talking with businesses all the time about pick your niche, who's your target audience, what makes you unique, what's the value proposition you bring to the table. And what I have found is it's so much easier talking to my clients about those things and helping them work through that than it is to sit
Yep.
down and do that in my own business. It's the shoemaker whose
Yep.
children have no shoes. It's the painter whose
Yep.
house is peeling paint. But I guess if there's any one piece of advice, no,
That's all right.
I have to give two. So the first piece of advice is you must make time to put yourself through your
Mm,
own program and follow your own advice. If you claim to be able to give successful advice, then you need to be able to take your own
right.
advice to build your business. And the other thing is, as you're getting started in consulting, a lot of people think that clients come from marketing and that clients go from marketing to sales to becoming a client. When you're building your business, you have to build your sales and marketing
Explain
pipeline backwards. You
that.
have to
Okay.
start with sales. You have to meet with people, talk to them, figure out what messages resonate with them to bring them to become a client so that you can apply those
Okay.
messages to your marketing. And if you're uninformed about what messages work in sales, then you're wasting time and money
Interesting.
in
That's
marketing.
really good. Really good. So, who are your ideal clients?
My ideal clients would be the small business owner with at least 4 employees, maybe up to 50. Annual revenue is probably 500,000, give or take. Um, who they've hit a block, whatever kind of block in their profitability and growth. So many business owners out there know how to run a
Yeah.
business and they do really well, but every business owner hits a point where they just hit the end of themselves and they can't get past themselves to figure out how to generate more profit or to grow their business or to think about what comes
Yeah.
next after I'm done here. And those are the people that I'm able to come across, to come alongside and say, well, let's try these strategies that it's not that you didn't know, you didn't do it. It's that you just didn't know. You didn't
Sure.
know these strategies existed. And so that's what I'm
So
bringing to
you
the
have a
table to
system
help out
then
with.
where, and the experience to know you can, assess a business. You can come in, you can say, okay, here's where we start first, and follow these steps. You're going to make some money, right?
And Pat, I have to say, I have been blessed to have been led to some tools
Yeah,
to help
that's
out
good.
with that.
Shameless
And so
plug.
then all I have to do is just
Exactly.
apply it. If I could put a plug in.
Please do. Please do. Shameless plug. That's good. I agree. I mean, that's why we built it. And yeah, I'm so glad you're part of the journey. So, hey, listen, where can our listeners, our viewers find you online? Where can they connect with you?
The best way to connect with me right now would be by email. My email address is very, very easy. You've got my name, Daniel McCraine. So my email is daniel at
There you go.
mccraine.com. And I have to say, I'm going through an infrastructure change in my business right now, and I basically have burned down a lot of my online presence, and I'm
Yeah.
in the process of rebuilding it. So you're not going to find a website as of the time of the recording of this podcast. It doesn't exist right now. I'm working on it. But you can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. There are very few Daniel McCraines out there. So if you find me on one of those social media
And
platforms,
for
it
those who
probably
are
is me.
listening but not viewing, it's McCraine is McCraine. Yeah. Daniel
Thank you.
at
Yes.
McCraine.com. There you
Yeah.
go. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, being my guest. It's such a pleasure to talk with you. And
My
I really
pleasure.
look forward to connecting with you again soon and talking about exit and all those business valuation. It's gonna be a new project of mine is business valuations. So maybe we'll connect on that. All
I'm
right.
looking forward
Thanks
to
and blessings.
it.
All right.
Thank you.